Okay, something really weird just happened at Pam Bondi's Senate hearing. And I mean, really weird. Attorney General Pam Bondi testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee on Tuesday for her first oversight hearing since she was confirmed. And what we witnessed was 5 hours of deflections, personal attacks, and some seriously strange non answers that honestly left me with more questions than when I even first started watching it. But before we dive into this mess, let's talk about who Pam Bondi actually is, because her history, it's very corrupt and very messy. Back in 2013, when Bondi was Florida's Attorney General, her office was investigating Trump University for fraud. Then Trump's foundation donated $25,000 to a group supporting her reelection. Days later, Bondi dropped the entire investigation. Trump later admitted that the donation was completely illegal, but the investigation stayed dead, and Bondi got her money. Then there's Epstein. Bondi has admitted that she met Jeffrey Epstein and called him a nice guy. Now she's Attorney General, overseeing investigations into his network. And she was the one on Trump's impeachment defense lawyer team, literally defending him on the Senate floor. This is who we're dealing with, somebody who's already dropped an investigation for Trump's cash, only $25,000, and defended him no matter what. So remember that as we go through what happened on Tuesday. From the jump, Bondi came out swinging. Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois asked about the National Guard troops being deployed to Chicago. Who authorized it? What's the legal justification? Did you sign off? Normal questions. Her answer? I wish you loved Chicago as much as you hate Donald Trump. He asked about troop deployment and she accused him of hating his own city. Then Senator Alex Padilla got hit with the same line about California. It became a pattern. Democrats or Republicans ask uncomfortable questions. Bondi attacks them personally. When they asked about Jeffrey Epstein, she pointed out Democratic senators took money from Epstein too and connected donors real quick. And let's just pause for a second there. A quick note from me. I don't care whether you're Zohran Mamdani, AOC, or Uncle Bernie himself. Anyone associated with Epstein or anyone who's complicit in child abuse is an automatic no. It's a non-negotiable for me. And I think probably for most of the people in my camp too. And speaking of accountability, Senator Adam Schiff asked Pam Bondi if she actually would act independent from Trump as Attorney General. Like, would she ever tell him no? She totally dodged the question and instead she went on the attack and told Schiff he owes Trump an apology for his entire career to try to flip the script. Rather than answer questions about her own accountability, she decided to bring up Schiff's past, including the fact that he was censured by Congress and accused him of being biased and dishonest. Basically, it was her way of defending Trump and deflecting any and all criticism and making the hearing more about attacking Schiff than about answering the actual question on whether the Department of Justice under her would be fair or independent. Seems pretty straightforward. Then Senator Peter Welsh from Vermont literally started his turn by saying, I've been waiting for my turn to get attacked, but now you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it right this second. He knew it was coming, but the attacks weren't even the weirdest part. What Bondi wouldn't say was even worse. She refused to answer questions about what she called personal matters. That included mass firings at the Department of Justice just days after she took over, most notably the firing of U.S. Attorney Michael Friedman. Why does this matter? Because he had reportedly recommended not indicting former FBI Director James Comey. 2 weeks later, Bondi overruled that, indicted him anyway. When Schiff pressed her on that, on whether Trump had been influenced, or whether Trump had influenced her decision, Bondi hid behind vague answers about ongoing investigations. She wouldn't say anything about her conversations with Trump or White House officials, not even whether she'd committed to the following legal precedent or was acting independently. Then came this moment with Senator Amy Klobuchar. Democrats brought up a photo of Bondi sitting with Trump, taken the day after he posted on Truth Social, Pam, we can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. Justice must be served now. He specifically named James Comey, Adam Schiff, and others he wanted prosecuted. Days later, Comey was indicted. Klobuchar asked point blank, do you consider that a directive to the Justice Department? Let's watch what happened in that Truth Social directive.
The Truth Social post on September 20th, 2025, in which the president said, "We can't delay any longer, Pam," using your name, "not bringing criminal charges are killing our reputation," his words, "and credibility." And then goes on to tell you to prosecute a member of this committee, to prosecute the Attorney General of New York, and to prosecute James Comey. Do you consider that a directive to the Justice Department?
Senator Klobuchar, President Trump is the most transparent president in American history, and I don't think he said anything that he hasn't said for years.
Okay.
He's the most transparent president in American history. I don't think he's ever said anything that he hasn't said for years. Okay, so this is the part that gets super interesting. I've been watching a lot of clips of Pam Bondi and Caroline Leavitt lately, unfortunately. And it's honestly super weird how often they use the word transparent to describe Trump. It could almost be like a drinking game. Of all the words that they could choose, that one sticks out. And the reputation says a lot about the talking points. They're likely being coached on these talking points. What's even more telling is that they almost always say it reactively, always in defense, like they're trying to get ahead of accusations about secrecy or the scandal of the day with Trump. We don't defend what's obvious unless we know people are looking a little too closely. Repetition is also a framing tactic. People tend to believe what they hear often, especially if it's simple and said with confidence. It kind of overrides cognitive dissonance, and it reframes criticism as unfair attacks, and it shifts the burden of truth onto the accuser. Suddenly, it's not about what Trump did, it's about how unfairly he's being treated. See what I'm saying? Try and pay attention to how often Pam and Leavitt do this. In this instance, with Pam, she was just asked in this clip about the directive she received from Trump on Truth Social, pushing for the prosecution of several adversaries. And she deflected with a talking point about transparency. Senator Schiff started listing all the questions she refused to answer about ethics investigations, about being dropped, about Epstein, about protecting Trump's allies. Schiff called her out and said, "This is supposed to be an oversight hearing where members of Congress can ask serious questions and get serious answers from you." And Bondi told him he owes Trump an apology for his entire career. Again, that's not an answer. That's just like a defensive attack. Now let's talk about Jeffrey Epstein, because this is where things got deeply suspicious. Remember, Bondi called Epstein a nice guy, and now she's running the Department of Justice, investigating this network. Senator Sheldon asked about suspicious financial transactions, and Bondi, of course, she had a full-blown meltdown. Let's take a look at the clip.
Let me ask you something else. There's been public reporting that Jeffrey Epstein showed people photos of President Trump with half-naked young women. Do you know if the FBI found those photographs in their search of Jeffrey Epstein's safe or premises or otherwise? Have you seen any such thing?
You know, Senator Whitehouse, you sit here and make salacious remarks, once again trying to slander President Trump left and right, when you're the one who was taking money from one of Epstein's closest confidants, I believe, I could be wrong, correct me, Reid Hoffman, who was with Jeffrey Epstein on multiple occasions. And the senator sitting right next to you tried to block the flight logs from being released. Yet you're grilling me on President Trump and some photograph with Epstein? Come on.
The question is, did the FBI find those photographs that have been discussed publicly by a witness who claimed Jeffrey Epstein showed them to him? You don't know anything about that. Okay.
So she refused to answer. She just refused to acknowledge the question in any way that felt like normal. It was super panicky. And then Senator Durbin asked about the Epstein files. Bondi had previously said that she had a list of Epstein's clients. Straight up, she said it was on her desk. But now the Department of Justice says there's no such list, that no such list exists. So Durbin asked, did you consult with the White House about releasing the Epstein files? Let's watch this next clip.
The quarrel with you is to read somebody that you mentioned I never heard of.
Reid Hoffman.
So who gave the order to flag records related to President Trump?
To flag records for President Trump?
To flag any records which included his name.
I'm not going to discuss anything about that with you, Senator.
Eventually, you're going to have to answer for your conduct in this. And you won't do it today, but eventually you will. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Bondi flat out refused to say if she'd coordinated with the White House about keeping the Epstein files under wraps. She wouldn't even address the question, which is not usually how I'd imagine attorney generals react when asked about something that they're not trying to hide. She refused to say whether she talked to the White House about keeping the Epstein files hidden. And it's actually not just the Democrats asking anymore. Republican Senator John Kennedy brought up Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick owned a home near Epstein in Palm Beach. Kennedy suggested Lutnick should testify and talk to the FBI. When asked again, Bondi deflected. She said that's between Lutnick and the FBI Director Kash Patel to figure it all out, which is wild because she's literally not answering the questions. Okay, back to those National Guard deployments, because even Republicans raised concerns here. Senator Dick Durbin asked, did the White House consult you before sending our own troops to a U.S. city such as Chicago? She refused to answer the question. Durbin kept pushing. He wanted to know why she was keeping this a secret. Why won't the American people know the rationale behind deploying federal troops to his state? What's the legal justification? Who authorized it? Bondi's answer, I wish you loved Chicago as much as you hate President Trump. If you're not going to protect your citizens, President Trump will. That's what she said. She's still not answering the question, but Durbin was asking a legal question. Under what authority were troops deployed? Who made that call? Was the Attorney General even consulted? Was she consulted? She wouldn't say any of that. Republican Senator Tom Tillis said he was having a real struggle with these deployments. He's worried that they're masking state-level failures. What happens when the troops leave? Bondi said they're protecting ICE agents in federal buildings. Tillis pushed back. Are we creating a Band-Aid that'll blow up later? She didn't really answer that question. Let me lay out what we know about Pam Bondi, the same woman who dropped Trump's fraud case after his foundation funneled $25,000 into her PAC. She defended him during his impeachment and once called Jeffrey Epstein a nice guy. And now she's refusing to answer basic questions with massive stakes. She wouldn't say if Trump personally directed prosecutions through her. She wouldn't explain what happened to the Epstein client list. She claimed to possess that same list as Florida's AG. She wouldn't confirm whether she coordinated with the White House about burying Epstein-related files. She wouldn't talk about the abrupt firings of DOJ officials, including one who advised against indicting James Comey just weeks before she did it anyway. And she wouldn't comment on using the National Guard against protesters, citing ongoing matters. At every turn, Bondi shut down oversight on issues involving presidential abuse, political prosecutions, and one of the most notorious sex trafficking cases in modern history. Instead, she decided to attack senators, deflect, and had a full-blown meltdown when asked about Trump and Epstein photos. At her oversight committee hearing, senators asked, will you serve the law or will you serve Trump? Independence, but Bondi's appearance is part of Congress's job to keep the Justice Department in check. But this wasn't a normal oversight hearing. Given her record and what's happening at the Department of Justice under her leadership, lawmakers from both parties pressed on her potential abuses of power, her politicized prosecutions, and her handling of the high-profile case of Jeffrey Epstein. The questions were totally fair. Pam Bondi, who once dropped a Trump fraud case after receiving money from him, defended him during impeachment, and publicly called Jeffrey Epstein a nice guy, now runs the country's most powerful law enforcement agency. Under her watch, the DOJ looks very different. She wouldn't even answer whether Trump had ever directed her to go after specific people. She wouldn't explain what happened to the Epstein client list that she previously claimed to have right on her desk. She wouldn't say whether she talked to the White House about shelving Epstein-related files. She sidestepped these questions about the firing of a DOJ official who advised against indicting James Comey, an indictment her department went ahead with soon after. She wouldn't discuss National Guard deployments, surveillance, or their programs, or Trump's public calls for prosecutions. She was pressed again and again. She leaned on the same phrase, personal matters, ongoing investigations, and it started to sound less like an oversight meeting and more like stonewalling. It's not just Congress raising alarms. More than 280 former Department of Justice officials signed a letter warning that the department's oath to the Constitution is being degraded under this administration. They're urging both parties to demand real answers before it is entirely too late. Senator Adam Schiff summed it up. He said the department has become Trump's personal sword and shield. That's a problem in every single line. When an attorney general won't say whether the president is telling her who to prosecute and won't clarify anything about missing files and won't explain political firings, the issue isn't just transparency. There's a broken justice system here. 5 hours of testimony, no straight answers, not a single one, just lots of smirks and silences and a familiar pattern. A Trump post and then an indictment days later. So what is Pam Bondi actually hiding? Because after this hearing, one thing is super clear. The public still has no idea, and that alone should be a red flag. And if this doesn't sit right with you either, make sure you're subscribed. We're going to keep digging into this because somebody needs to hold her accountable. We're also just about to hit 6,000 subscribers here on Lauren's version of the Lauren Preacher Show. I have 100% ownership over this channel, and I self-fund it, so I can't grow without your support. Grateful you're here. If you've enjoyed this, please share, and we'll be back with more.